20 years ago, Officer Marcus Daniels, a black cop in a city fraught with its own racial tensions and economic challenges, made a decision that would change his life forever. He was a dedicated man in his early 40s, known for his calm demeanor in stressful situations and his strong sense of justice. But beyond his badge and the bulletproof vest he donned daily, there was a man with a deep well of compassion that few knew about. It was a late afternoon in the spring of 2004 when Marcus first encountered them. It had been a long day on the beat. He was driving back to the station when his radio buzzed, reporting a disturbance at a nearby apartment complex. The details were vague, but it was enough for Marcus to turn his squad car around and head to the scene. The apartment complex was run down, the kind of place where hope often seemed in short supply. Marcus parked his car and approached the small crowd that had gathered outside one of the buildings. As he pushed his way through, he saw two little girls sitting on the curb, their eyes wide with fear. They couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old, with matching pigtails and dirty clothes that hung loosely on their small frames. He quickly learned that they had been abandoned by their mother, left behind with nothing but a few pieces of clothing and a note that simply read, "I can't do this anymore." No one knew how long they had been there. Neighbors told Marcus that the mother had struggled with addiction, disappearing for days at a time, leaving the girls to fend for themselves. This time, it seemed, she wasn't coming back. Marcus knelt down to talk to the girls. He learned their names, Tasha and Maya. They were frightened, unsure of what was happening. Child Protective Services had been called, and the girls would be taken into foster care. Most likely separated, sent to different homes where they would be just 2 more kids in a system already overwhelmed. As he looked into their innocent eyes, something inside Marcus shifted. He had never been a father. His life had always been his job, and though he was respected by his colleagues, he was often seen as distant, someone who kept to himself. But in that moment, he felt a responsibility he had never known before. These 2 girls had been abandoned by the one person who was supposed to protect them, and though it made no logical sense, Marcus felt he couldn't let them slip away into the system. After a long night of phone calls, paperwork, and conversations with his superiors and family, Marcus made the decision to adopt Tasha and Maya. It wasn't easy. A single black man adopting 2 young girls, both unwanted and discarded by their mother, was not a common occurrence. There were questions, skepticism, even from some of his friends. They warned him of the challenges, told him he wasn't thinking it through, but Marcus didn't care. He knew what he had to do. The first few years were difficult. Tasha, the older of the 2, was fiercely independent, often pushing Marcus away. She had learned at such a young age not to rely on anyone. Her mother's abandonment had left a deep scar, one that manifested in outbursts of anger and moments of complete withdrawal. Maya, on the other hand, was more sensitive, more clingy, and terrified of being left alone. She would follow Marcus around the house, always needing to be near him, as if she feared he too would one day disappear without warning. Marcus struggled. There were nights he sat in his room, exhausted from the day, wondering if he had made the right choice. He wasn't prepared for the emotional toll it would take, the sheer weight of responsibility that came with raising 2 girls who had been through so much, but he never gave up on them. He enrolled them in therapy, attended every school function, and made sure they knew every single day that they were loved and wanted. As the years passed, the bond between Marcus and the girls grew stronger. Tasha began to trust him, slowly allowing herself to be vulnerable. She started doing well in school, excelling in her classes, and developing a passion for writing. Maya, with her gentle nature, blossomed into a talented artist, filling the house with drawings and paintings that reflected her vibrant imagination. They were healing, and though the scars of their past would never fully disappear, they were becoming whole again, thanks to the stability and love Marcus provided. By the time Tasha and Maya reached their teenage years, they had grown into strong, intelligent young women. Marcus couldn't have been prouder. They were thriving, despite everything they had been through. He had raised them with a firm but loving hand, teaching them the values of hard work, kindness, and resilience. But Marcus never expected what would come next. As Tasha and Maya approached their high school graduations, they began to make plans for their futures. Tasha had been accepted to several prestigious universities, and Maya had been offered a scholarship to an art school in New York. Marcus, now in his 60s, had always known this day would come. The day when his girls would leave home and begin their own journeys. He had prepared for it as best as he could, but it didn't make the prospect any easier. He had dedicated his life to raising them, and now they would be venturing out into the world on their own. The day before they left for college, Tasha and Maya sat down with Marcus. There was something different about their demeanor, a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. They handed him a small, carefully wrapped box. Marcus opened it to find a key. Confused, he looked up at the girls, who smiled at him with tears in their eyes. "We bought you a house," Tasha said softly. Marcus was speechless. He had never expected anything like this. With the money they had saved from scholarships, part-time jobs, and a crowdfunding campaign they had quietly launched in the community, Tasha and Maya had pooled their resources to buy their father a small house near the beach, a place he had always talked about retiring to but never believed he could afford. Marcus stared at the key in disbelief, his heart swelling with emotion. He had given these girls everything he had, his time, his love, his guidance, and now they were giving him something in return that went beyond anything material. It was a gesture of profound gratitude, a symbol of the love and respect they had for the man who had saved them, who had become their father in every way that mattered. Tasha spoke first. "Dad, you gave us a life. You didn't have to, but you did. You took us in when no one else would, and you never gave up on us, even when we were at our worst. You taught us how to be strong, how to believe in ourselves. This house, it's just a small way for us to say thank you." Maya wiped away a tear and added, "You didn't just give us a home, you gave us a family. And we want you to have a place where you can finally rest, where you can enjoy the life you've worked so hard for." Marcus couldn't hold back his tears. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to cry, not out of sadness or frustration, but out of sheer gratitude. He had always thought that raising Tasha and Maya was his duty, a responsibility he had taken on because no one else would. But in that moment, he realized that they had given him just as much as he had given them. They had filled his life with purpose, with joy, with love. The next day, as Tasha and Maya packed up their things and prepared to leave for college, Marcus stood at the doorway, watching them with a mixture of pride and sadness. He knew they would go on to do incredible things, and though he would miss them, he also knew that they would never truly be gone. The bond they shared, forged through years of struggle and love, was unbreakable. As they hugged him goodbye, Tasha whispered in his ear, "We'll come back. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning." And Marcus knew she was right. They were his daughters, not by blood, but by choice, and that bond was stronger than anything biology could dictate. He had saved them once, but in truth, they had saved him too. Over the years, Tasha and Maya visited often, and as they built their own lives, they never forgot the man who had given them everything. They became successful in their own right, Tasha as a writer, Maya as an artist. But their greatest accomplishment, in their eyes, was being able to repay the man who had saved them in ways they could never fully express. And Marcus? He spent his remaining years in the house by the beach, content in the knowledge that the two little girls he had adopted on a whim had grown into remarkable women who had given him a life richer than he had ever imagined. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful tales like this one, don't forget to hit subscribe to American Fables on YouTube, where every story has a lesson and every voice matters.